Hello everyone, my name is Bob Segar and I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Campus Planning and Environmental Stewardship at the University of California, Davis. It's a pleasure to be with you in this international workshop today. I'd like to share a little bit of the program that we put together at UC Davis for two vital needs at our university. One, creating a climate adapted landscape, very important in the hot Central Valley of California. I'll share a little bit more about that. And the role of community engagement involving our entire campus community, in particular our students, in that process to transform our landscape. Let me tell you a little bit about UC Davis first. University of California, Davis was founded over 100 years ago in California in 1908. We are currently, as the agricultural university for the University of California, we are now over 38,000 students, and the campus is the largest in the University of California system at over 3,700 acres, which is about 1,500 hectares. We also have a 100-acre arboretum. That's the green tree line that you see snaking through the picture on the left, and the arboretum plays a key role in our community engagement process, which I will tell you more about. It's also a unique university in that it's large in compared to its local city, and we have all of our own municipal services. So we control our water system, our energy system, our waste system on the campus itself. So here's where we're located. This slide shows Central California. That's on the left is the Pacific Ocean and San Francisco Bay. On the right are the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and you can see the little pointer there, A, in the Central Valley of California between the coastal mountain range and the Sierras to the east. So I'm zooming in a little bit more, and you can begin to see the agricultural pattern of landscape in the Central Valley. Zooming in again, we're getting into, you can see Davis now. That's Sacramento, city of Sacramento, California, the state capital on the right, and the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area on the left. And there's Davis in the center of the agricultural valley. Zooming in again, there's the university boundary. That's at that approximately 1,500 hectares in relationship to our local city, the city of Davis. And those are three sections of our campus, our central campus, south campus, and west campus, which is mostly agricultural research land. UC Davis started as the agricultural university for the University of California. So in addition to the campus itself, I want to tell you a little bit about our Arboretum. It's 100 acres, as I mentioned, right in the center of our campus. It's been founded in 1936, so it's over 80 years old. And that's our vehicle for learning and community engagement that propels our transformation project at the university. A little bit about the front door of the university. Campus Planning and the Arboretum have a multi-year program going where we have created new public venues. So there's the Arboretum and Public Garden. That's the tree-lined long linear area that you can see there at the label. That used to be the southern boundary of the campus. That's where the campus stopped. You can see the freeway off to the right. We have this whole new entry district now that has placed the Arboretum in the center of our campus and made it much more a locus of activity and from which these engagement activities are propelled. So in this entry district, we have a new alumni center. We have a new center for performing arts, the Mondavi Center for Performing Arts. We have our new Graduate School of Management, the Welcome Center for all students coming to campus, a new Institute for Wine and Food Science, viticulture technology, winemaking, and grape growing is one of the strong programs at UC Davis, and a brand new Museum of Art. So you can see how we clustered these high public contact, high visitor attracting uses at this front door to the university, and that becomes a gateway to our Arboretum as well. So the process that has led to this engagement program at the Arboretum started by running the Drucker Planning process for nonprofits, where they interviewed over 4,000 stakeholders, faculty, students, staff, community leaders, members of our local community, and put together a 10-year vision. This was over 20 years ago now, when this planning process originated, and came out with these vision elements to improve the visitor experience, enhancing the Arboretum as a learning resource, strengthening the academic and scientific connections, and really important, to interpret the work of UC Davis for the public. So the Arboretum took on this goal of, yes, teaching people about plants and landscapes and sustainable landscape planning, but also as a public destination to decode, to make available more information about the university itself as a public venue. And that's propelled a lot of our. So this is a kind of a fun diagram, but you can see the waterway in blue down there, which is at the heart of the long linear arboretum. And it's just a diagram to show that arboretum has a role for us of creating a gateway to our campus itself in the middle, to the city on the right, to our greater region, and in fact, to the world through international connections in its role as a conservation landscape. So a very exciting multi-layered set of goals. We started the process with these small gardens next to academic buildings that brought the activity of that academic discipline outside into the landscape. This is a geology, we call them gateway gardens. This is a geology garden where these large rocks and stones from throughout California were placed in the landscape and interpreted so that they could actually be used for geology classes. And that became a model for what are now probably a dozen gateway gardens across the campus that extend the scope of the Arboretum, but also make visible the academic work from inside that building. And they've become a very treasured part of the campus and a exciting diversity to the landscape. And of course, they're done in addition to their academic themes with thematic plantings that are sustainable and climate appropriate. Here's a picture of some students at work, and what happened from these gateway gardens is we developed a model that became what you'll see we called the Learning by Leading program. And the sweet spot for Learning by Leading is that the work in the landscape would involve student learning and leadership, would involve our public, and would transform our landscapes into a more sustainable form. That sweet spot in the middle is what became the Learning by Leading program. The educators at the Arboretum put together this leadership ladder for students that has a very clear step-by-step process that students can go through as they gain experience and increased responsibility, to go all the way from just beginning to learn and understand to leading apprenticeships and becoming teachers and leaders and educators in their own right. And it's been a very successful process. It's structured now so that each Learning by Leading team is composed of a staff mentor from the Arboretum and Public Garden, as well as then 2 student leaders who've come up through the process from their beginning roles to becoming leaders of teams, and then 4 to 15 student interns on each team as well. And we're up now over 120 students each year, gaining on 150. So there are various teams that have been formed. There's one in sustainable horticulture. Again, think of that process where there's a staff mentor, there are 2 student leaders, co-leaders, and then there's a team of students learning and coming up through the process, and they're actually getting their hands on transforming landscapes on our campus. This was a turf landscape at the edge of between a sidewalk and a road, the high water use landscape that these students and team leaders and their mentor are transforming with sustainable planting. There's a waterway at the heart of the Arboretum that runs for its whole 1.5 mile length, and we have a waterway stewardship team that's learning about how to the appropriate plantings and waterway stewardship. Another Learning by Leading team structure. We have a team on environmental education, and again, student leaders in every role, and they put on cultural events and education events for all ages in the Arboretum. Again, students. We have a team on food insecurity. There are many people in our community and even students on our campus who are food insecure. And so there's a student Learning by Leading team that addresses that. We have an environmental equity Learning by Leading team. Again, think student leaders. Many of these are international students who have not been comfortable exploring the more open and natural landscapes around our campus and our community. And now we have students who have evolved into leadership roles and are making this opportunity available for their peers who may not be comfortable initially as well, and they're learning more about sustainable landscapes, wild landscapes, and their role in California. And here's just an example. Here's a testimonial from a student. I won't read it to you, but it's the program has really proved extremely valuable for students as they launch their careers, because it's given them that experiential learning, that hands-on, that being a co-creator and evolving into a team leader that's made a huge difference as students step out into their world post-graduation and look for work, particularly in the environmental field, but in all fields. So we've formed a network initiated by the Learning by Leading program with public gardens and universities across the country, and even growing increasingly internationally, where people are emulating the model and doing their own version of Learning by Leading for community engagement and student engagement to transform their own landscapes. Here's a few examples. Just in closing, I want to say a little bit about how this program has now led us to do campus planning differently. So I've led campus planning at UC Davis for over 30 years, actually. And now that this program is in place, this is a landscape near our veterinary school with the trees and the arboretum in the background. The sketches of a whole new landscape which has now been implemented. And when I say we do campus planning differently, what I mean is we would not have been able to invest in a landscape like this because of the maintenance requirements before at the university. But now that we have the Learning by Leading program, this entire landscape, which is a huge natural water basin, there are gardens in the foreground that are actually hummingbird gardens. That's why the hummingbird is on this picture, in concert with a faculty member who studies wildlife ecology from the veterinary school. The reason we can do it now, we can get the one-time funds from different sources to build it, but as you all know, taking care of these landscapes is the real cost over time. And now that we have these Learning by Leading teams that involve students and members of the community, we can create landscapes like this because we have a way to. So here's a team in the hummingbird garden, students, community members, staff, faculty. Lastly, this whole program we're now scaling up with something we call the Living Landscape Adaptation Plan to apply beyond the boundaries of the Arboretum to the whole campus. This is one of the images of cork oak trees in the center of our campus. We've done a lot of, here again, students and one of the gardens they've created. We've done a lot of analysis of the climate trends for our particular landscape with scientists on the campus. Here you can see the trend towards hotter weather and more extreme weather. Here's a drought diagram. We're in the middle of another bad one in California, and I'm sure you're aware of the fires that we're experiencing. Here's an inventory of the tree canopy. Those are all the beginning of we have over 14,000 trees just in the center of campus. And this red, yellow, green analysis shows which of those trees is adapted for our landscape going forward and which ones aren't. And you can see the prevalence of red on here. That means those are trees in our existing landscape that are not adapted for the future climate that we're in. So we're forming programs. This one's called UC Davis Oaks. Oaks are one of our best tree species for adaptation going forward, to gain support not just for trees in the Arboretum, but for protecting existing trees and extending trees into the campus landscape through these student engagement community programs that were developed through Learning by Leading. So we're trying to embrace the challenges of climate, the joyfulness of community engagement, the benefits all this provides for students, to a new kind of landscape that's actually co-created at the university. And final slide here, something we say a lot is that when you co-create the landscape and you co-create the future, you create co-owners for your environment, people who care enough to participate now and enough to help protect and sustain these landscapes in the future. Thank you very much. Look forward to participating in the rest.